The film begins by showing a war veteran named Ray Francis, who has just returned to his country. This will be his last time serving in the military since he plans to leave the military and marry his girlfriend. Meanwhile, a beautiful woman named Kelly is having a good time in a city park not long after Ray suddenly appears from behind and surprises the woman. It turns out that this woman is his lover, and she is delighted to see Ray since he had previously stated he would be home next week without wasting any time. Ray then takes out a ring and proposes to Kelly. Of course, the woman is taken aback and delighted by Ray's proposal, which she accepts without hesitation. After that, the two of them intend to leave the park, but Kelly forgets to take the book she was reading with her, so Ray immediately returns to take it. It is at this point that bad things begin to happen to them both, especially for Ray. Two men suddenly in a luxury car approach, and one of the men named Tim tries to seduce Kelly at first. Ray and Kelly tries not to respond to them and get into the car, but instead, Tim gets out of his car, where he takes off his pants and shows his torpedo, right in front of Kelly's window. Ray becomes very angry and begins to beat the two guys, but Tim then pulls out a knife and Ray tries to parry the knife attack. Unfortunately, the bad things continue to happen to them, because the man is stabbed to death by his own knife. Tim get up due to that incident. Ray and Kelly go to meet their lawyer, because it turns out that Ray is facing murder charges. The lawyer informs Ray that he is faced with two difficult choices, according to the lawyer. If he pleads guilty, his sentence will be only 2 to 3 years long, and he will be able to serve only 18 months. Otherwise, if Ray does not enter a guilty plea, he could face a sentence of 5 to 8 years in prison. In other words, Ray will no longer be able to evade his prison sentence if he chooses either of these two options finally. It seems that he has decided to plead guilty and serve an 18-month prison sentence. We then move to the murdered man's father's named Harvey Thompson, and he appears unable to accept his son's death. Plus, it looks like the father isn't just any average person, and we can see that he sends his man to find out the identity of Ray Francis. The person also gives additional information about the location where Ray will be imprisoned. The scene then shifts to the prison where Ray will be imprisoned. Let me introduce this man. This man is Jack Morrison, and he is the one who in charge of this prison. He is visited by the father of the man who was killed by Ray Harvey, who has been devastated by the death of his son. Asked Jack to ensure that Ray will never be able to leave prison again. In return, he offers a large sum of money which Jack would use to pay his subordinates to carry out his heinous acts. The day has finally arrived for the inmates to begin serving their prison sentences. One of the guards named Rico is greeting the new prisoners. At this moment, Ray and several other prisoners are ordered to remove all of their clothing in order to be subjected to a security check. Rico also begins to hate Ray as he attempts to defend the young man next to him, who is being forced to remove his underwear from the first day of his imprisonment. Ray has received physical contact from Rico. After that, Ray is taken by a guard named Williams to meet Jack Morrison. It is revealed here that Ray served in the military for 12 years, 4 of which were spent in Iraq. He was also awarded a Medal of Bravery for his acts in Iraq. At this moment, Jack tries to act nice, as if he isn't up to something, and tells the guard to look after him. Williams then takes Ray to his cell and begins to warn him. I can be easy to get along with, or I can be your worst nightmare. After only a few days, Ray starts to receive a warm welcome from other inmates, where there is a bit of a fight, and then another group of inmates, led by Mason, come to help him. It appears that there's about to be a fight between the two groups, but Williams intervenes and orders them to leave in prison. Ray is assigned to work in the prison library. He then meets David, a senior inmate, who tells him where the books will be arranged. He makes his way to his cell. Ray is once again provoked by the other inmates, but he still manages to keep his emotions under control. While Ray is reading a diary in his cell, he is suddenly accosted by Rico and the others, who start to check his room. Soon after, the old guard then found a photo of Ray's girlfriend. The terrible thing happens when Ray has to witness a photo of his girlfriend being licked by Rico, and he really wants to beat up that old guard, but he can't do anything because he is being held back by the other two guards. Moreover, Rico makes Ray even more angry by tearing up his girlfriend's photo. The other two guards' names are Victor and Fox. Rico then orders Ray to take off his shirt and starts to intimidate back. I said, look at me. I said, don't. Look back. This old guard, who is not satisfied with just hitting him, wants to do something much more extreme, and luckily Victor intervenes and prevents him from doing so. When Ray is taking a shower, he is once again treated badly by a prisoner. There, at this moment, there is a big guy named Hammer, who is impressed by Ray's torpedo. Ray is then asked to crouch down so that Hammer can sharpen his sword. Therefore, Ray greets him with a friendly punch and pushes him away. Rico then appears and beats Ray until he is brought back to Jack's room. Ray then tries to explain that he was only trying to defend himself against that gay man, but instead Jack doesn't seem to care about it at all, and he claims that it is normal for them to share their asses. Since Ray continues to argue, he is beaten again many times by the guards. Victor then asks them to stop beating Ray because he would get killed at lunchtime. Ray meets up again with the inmate in the library, including Jade, a young man who is still only 18 years old during their conversation. Ray notices a convict who had a fight with him at the beginning of his imprisonment. After that, he and David then continue their conversation about their past in the library. It is revealed at this point that David will not get out of prison, because 15 years ago, he and his brother robbed a money truck and shot 2 security guards, as well as killing a